It's the brilliant and disturbing four-part drama series that's become the most watched show on Netflix around the world over the weekend.
Yeah, they were talking about it on Lorraine, weren't they? We're talking about it today again. You're going to be talking about it everywhere you go. Adolescence is the series. It centres on a 13-year-old boy who has been accused of murdering a female classmate. It explores the haunting reality of murder, misogyny and the danger of social media amongst young people today.
I mean, it was just brilliantly acted,
It's
brilliantly
extraordinary,
written,
such compelling,
constructive,
terrifying.
Well, aside from the critical acclaim, the show's close-to-home subject matter has left many parents across the country asking themselves just how real is adolescence. We're joined now by David Wilson to tell us more.
I mean,
we were watching it. We were both watching it last night and texting each other in between, just going, it's so traumatic. Tell us, for those people that haven't seen it, give us a brief outline.
OK, so you're right. This is an incredible piece of TV drama, brilliantly acted, technically dazzling, one long continuous shot for each of the 4 episodes. It's about 13-year-old Jamie Miller, and the opening scene is of Jamie Miller being in his bed, in his bedroom. Police enter his bedroom and arrest him, accused of having murdered, stabbed to death, one of his classmates. And the narrative arc is effectively, is he guilty of that crime? And then very quickly the narrative arc turns into, why would he do this kind of thing? And of course, the key piece of information to remember is this is a 13-year-old boy. Could a 13-year-old boy be radicalised so much online that he would be prepared to use lethal violence?
I think the thing that's so extraordinary is watching it as parents to boys. Mine are older than yours, of course, and realising my boys have been through those teenage years as well, where there's so much complication because of the advent of social media and digital media as well. But this idea of male rage and young men being radicalised, David, is something that is so alien to us as 50-year-olds and late 40s, but to understand that for these young men, and obviously for the character Jamie as well, that it's very, very real.
Absolutely. And really the drama is about male rage, the manosphere, incel culture. Do 80%, as the incels will believe, 80%...
Can you explain what an incel is?
An incel is literally an involuntary celibate. And ironically, that phrase was coined by a woman. It was a woman in Canada who had no friends and hadn't been having sex, so said she was an involuntary celibate. And over time, in particular since 2014, with the crimes committed by Elliot Rodger in California, who was a spree killer, incel culture has become more and more prevalent on social media. And the big thing to remember about your boys, 18 and 19, your boys are younger. My son is 32. You know, when they used to consume television or videos, they did so often in a communal setting with the family on the sofa. Now, of course, Gen Z's, young boys, 13-year-old Jamie Miller, brilliantly played by Owen Cooper in the series, is consuming this material online for as long as he likes. And of course, the algorithms will direct him to ever more extreme forms.
It's an echo chamber, isn't it? It's just the same thing, but even more extreme.
And therefore, the point, in a sense, and why I'm so pleased that we're doing this item, is to get people to talk to their kids about these things. You know, this is a problem, this male rage, this manosphere, this incel culture, this kind of buffet radicalisation, where young people will take a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of something else. The key thing is to get people to start talking to boys about what it means to be a man, how to perform masculinity, because, of course, we've so often allowed that to be, that responsibility of talking to them, to be given away to social media influencers like Andrew Tate. And I think that's why it's caught so much of the public's imagination, because they'll be aware, for example, that Carl Clifford, who was recently convicted of the 3 murders of the Hunt family, was watching Andrew Tate videos online prior to committing those murders. So it's really important that we start talking to young men about the performance of masculinity.
Because this wasn't based on one particular episode. It wasn't one crime,
Real crime,
but Andrew Tate is mentioned in here.
Yeah, the female detective mentions Andrew Tate in the second episode when the detectives go to the school of 13-year-old Jamie Miller. But Stephen Graham, who wrote this with Jack Thorne, said it was inspired by what happened to Ava White, a 12-year-old girl in 2021, and Eliane Adnam in 2023, both girls that were murdered by being stabbed. Now, the key thing, remember, though, is that a lot of the reason why this has captured the public's imagination is that you can also think about Nicholas Prosper, who recently murdered his mother, his sister, and his brother in Luton, and even Axel Rudakabana, the Southport killer. What is happening to young men that they are becoming so radicalised that they are using lethal violence?
Well, look, one of the scenes that has got everyone talking is the discovery that the teenagers in the drama are using emojis as sort of secret language with double meanings, hiding their true intent behind the messages.
But how much truth is there to this secret emoji language, and which emojis could be cause for concern?
Well, we're joined now by Alice Beer on the sofa and also Dr Olivia Brown, who's an Associate Professor in Digital Futures at the University of Bath. Thank you for joining us this morning, Olivia. I mean, we should point out that you have a real interest in online behaviour extremism, and you've spent 5 years studying the far right, this manosphere and incel behaviour. David has just given us an outline of the idea of incel behaviour and how pervasive that's becoming. And then when you watch that drama from your perspective, what did you make of it? Particularly that scene we just looked at where we suddenly understand that young people are using these emojis in order to deliver unseen messages.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really fantastic piece of television. And I think the main thing here is it's shining a light on the fact that within online communities, people are using emojis, they're using memes, they're using specific terms and phrases to communicate things that might look on the surface to be quite innocent, but it's really shining a light here that there is often a hidden meaning to these memes, to these emojis, that's only really understood by the community itself. So if an outcome of this is that parents are talking to their children more, well, I think that's only a really positive thing.
And Dr Olivia, these emojis are constantly evolving, essentially, but can you give us some examples that exist at the moment that you've seen before and what the meanings are?
Yeah, so one of the most common ones, and it's talked about in the show, would be the emoji of the pill. So this is to represent the concept of red pilling. So this is used by lots of different communities across the manosphere, essentially conveying this idea of someone opening up to see the real truth in the world. It's sort of borrowed from ideas from the Matrix films, if you've maybe seen those. But for people in the manosphere and the incel communities, this tends to mean promoting ideas around male superiority over women, and importantly, women being the cause of men's issues within society. And you can certainly see how that might fuel anger towards women. And of course, as we see in the show, actually violence towards women as well.
I'm fascinated because, of course, your interest is in this path of watching that drama, and of course we did point out it is a drama, just how real that felt to you with somebody who's an expert in this field.
It felt really real, and I think that's the really depressing but also important thing to come out of this show, is that we need to be talking to young people more about the communities that they're in, the content that they're exposed to, and also, crucially, the way that this can impact upon behaviour. And we're seeing this, as David's mentioned, time and time again with real-world cases of violence across the globe. This is not a UK issue, this is a global issue. And really trying to understand what the effects are on young people of being exposed to this type of extreme content time and time again on all sorts of platforms. In fact, it's almost harder for them to avoid the content than it is for them to actually seek out the content.
Yeah. Olivia, there's going to be loads of mums and dads sitting at home right now that are going to have seen Adolescence and hear what we're talking about, and they're going to be terrified. What advice would you give them?
The main thing is to try to create conditions in which you could have that open and honest conversation. What we don't want, and it's shown very well in the programme, is young people locking themselves in their bedrooms and feeling unable to express concern or worry if they come across content that makes them feel a certain type of way, that maybe makes them feel uncomfortable. So the best thing that we could do as parents is to encourage consistent, open and honest conversation. Make your child feel as though if they're worried about something something online, that they can come and talk to you about that. And of course, it's a very tricky balance to strike there, but we really want to encourage more open and honest conversation between parents and children, because we know that children are being exposed to this extreme content more than they ever have. And obviously that's a big, big concern.
I mean, Alice, we sort of, while Olivia was talking, and it's fascinating to hear her talk, and we got David's perspective on this as well, we saw some of those emojis that are being used. For everyone home, as Kat was saying, as parents, you're going to be sitting there thinking, what on earth are my kids using when they use these emojis? Can you just talk through what they mean, what could be implied by their use?
Well, obviously, as Dr Olivia was saying, that these are specific incel emojis. It's the pill, the dynamite, you're blowing something up, you're exploding a myth, you're exploding societal norms to... I've seen the light, I've seen the revelation, 100%. The bean, which evolved, I understand, from a coffee bean to a kidney bean. I mean, it is a code.
I think the 100% is about the 80% of women attracted to 20%, and it's a breakdown of what incels believe.
Exactly. But these are very, very specific incel emojis, which you will only see in very particular circumstances.
Yeah.
In the worlds that Dr Olivia moves in, the world that, David moves in, but they're not the emojis that you and I are using in general parlance. There'll be people watching, who are in my age group, hanging on to my 50s by a thread, saying, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
The emoji is a beautiful symbol that we have used for the last, 20 years to convey the sun's out, it's snowing, have a hug. And there used to be, there were 170 odd emojis when they first came out. There's now nearly 3,000 emojis. It's this constantly evolving language. And as Olivia was saying, it works between communities and peer groups, but you've got to understand, and as Adolescence is showing, that you've got to understand what another peer group, another community is saying. So let's have a look. These drug emojis, obviously these are all seen in context. If you suddenly see a horse on your child's phone, it doesn't mean they're taking ketamine. But this, in the context of other troubled circumstances, the devil, ecstasy, the skull, the nitrous oxide balloon, probably more common parlance, cocaine, it's the nose, it's the petrol pump, it's the snowflake, and ketamine, the horse drug, obviously the horse tranquilizer.
Yeah.
But again, they're in the context of what else is doing. I remember we had on this sofa a mother who'd lost her child to suicide who said, I regret not being nosy. I regret not looking and upsetting my child by looking at their phone. So if you see, these are more interesting, I think, because if I saw a frog, I'd think that was cute. It means you're ugly. The smiley face without the smile, don't say a word to anybody. So the bullying, the asking for sexually explicit photographs, say with a video camera, you're going to be noticing them and realising, these are sexually explicit, they require a specific response. You're going to have a red flag that you then need to have a conversation with your child.
David, the reality of this as well, of course, though, that these are young people, so it's really agile. This conversation is really agile. All of those things that Alice just explained, they'll be onto something else by now because they'll realise, the grown-ups have seen what we're doing.
We're not fast enough.
We're not, and so how can we? I mean, I think it goes back to what Olivia's saying, and you've said it as well. How can the people watching today do everything they can to protect their kids, to help their boys navigate this period, and also the girls in their lives as well?
So it very much is about communication and not imagining, this is going to take place in school. One of the most incredible episodes was episode 2 that was set in the school. My son's a school teacher, and it might have seemed to somebody that doesn't understand schooling that it was an exaggeration, whereas in fact it seemed to me to capture a reality. Don't imagine someone else is going to solve this problem for you. You're going to solve this problem by being prepared to talk about it, not allowing your son or your daughter to spend hour after hour in their bedroom by themselves going down rabbit holes that's going to take them to places that they don't want to go to.
It is an extraordinary drama. And Olivia, if we can just come to you for the last word, can you give us some sort of optimism and positivity off the back of it? I think even if it is just opening those channels of communication, but the opportunity to de-radicalise some of these young men, I imagine, is out there as well, if you can get in front of it.
Absolutely, and I think that this conversation is becoming more and more mainstream, more and more prevalent, and I think that this show has been a really, really important step forward, particularly for parents, in really just understanding that you might think that the conversations that your children are having are completely innocent, but actually just trying to take a step back and thinking, well, maybe there's a bit of a hidden meaning going on here. Maybe we want to ask a few more questions, because as we've said, this will evolve. What is a problem now? What is a problematic emoji today? Probably won't be a problematic emoji in a few months' time. So the only way that we can sort of address that is by that continued communication and really trying to understand what it is that your child is doing when they're online. But hopefully this will trigger some of those important conversations. So I think there is some room for optimism here.
Good, that's what we need. Olivia, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's great to get your perspective on it. David, as ever, brilliant, and Alice as well. It is a remarkable bit of television. The technical side of it is definitely worth taking in. The acting is incredible, but the themes behind it are so important as well.
Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.